Any thoughts on the last classes or anything?
I'm enjoying, the tutorial. This is definitely high level. Um, even though it's high level learning, it's so fundamental. Like it almost feels like one of those saphers where almost like Missy Yasharin, like you have to have this in your bag, because in the opening he explains so, beautifully the how Hashem is one and how everything stems from that. It's like a conceptual like building block for any person that's trying to, build a relationship with Hakadosh Baruch Hu. So it just causes. I mean, I'm really enjoying it. I really am. It causes me to think. You have to like I've been having a review. You should review all your learning, of course, but it's like even when we're reading it in this year, I'm going back and rereading paragraph. Like sentences, paragraphs. I'm like, oh, let me make sure I got that, and going to the sources and trying to make sure I'm getting a good understanding because it's high level. What are your thoughts on it so far?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, we're just, it's good. I mean, it's a different, it's not different, but there's certain like nuances that he's bringing to the table. And anyway, so let's just go into it. So it says Be'or Tehillah. So we're in Kalach Pirkei Chochma, chapter 10 with Rampo. And so far it's been a great adventure. So he starts off chapter 10 by this idea of saying, this idea that the commentator is bringing, he's saying that how the emanator operates through the spheroids, through the chain of cause and effect, and by clothing one power in another, how these appear in prophecy. Okay, so it says payload to ham atzil. So he says the work of the emanator. Blessed be he which he brings about through the spheroids in accordance to the law he chose for them are interdependent. These things emerge as consequences of one another. So every spheroid, every form of energy has its own existence, but they work in conjunction with each other through Hashem's will. Things emerge a consequence of one another. One thing is concealed within another, and in a sense that one power may be acting in a hidden manner while outwardly appears as the truth is that the manifest power acts only in accordance with the power concealed within it. So he's showing like, from one world, from the world of emanation, you have the world of Bria. You have for the world of Keter, you have the world of Chochma, right? But these all things, all the spheroids exist in one spheroid, right? But they reveal themselves to manifest the process of the illumination of the light. He says, therefore, the spheroid seen taking all the forms and likeness appear in the form of clothes appear within the lights, or as lights emerge from another light. All these forms and likeness are what the soul sees when looking at the spheroid. From seeing them, the soul gains an understanding of these phenomena on the spiritual plane, just as we gain knowledge of physical phenomena through the vision of physical eye. It says, Akare Sheve Sheranu, Ainaina Hadani Vonot, Be Halal. So he says, we have discussed the general terms in the subject of form and likeness in which the spheres appear. Now we enter how further details. So in essence, where we're at right now is like we're dealing with this idea of how these lights manifest from the Ein Sof. Obviously, we know these lights have a direct power in this world, but what is their functionality? So he says, part one, either the Chalaki Han Hazeh. Bet. He says two parts. He says the pre-proposed has two parts. the works of the emanator. This discuss how the lights govern the creation are interconnected. Two, therefore, the sirot are seen. This explains why this interconnectivity appears in prophetic visions. So it says, Pe'elot ha'mitzil. So he says, Ze peshut ki ha'sfirot. So he says clearly, he said the work, he says this is part one, the work of the emanator, blessed be he. Clearly, the spheroids are not to be identified with the work of the emanator, blessed be his name, in creating and governing the worlds. Rather, the spheroids are the thoughts that underline these works, while the creation and the way they are governed are the works arising out of the thoughts. Whoa, okay. He says, clearly the spheroids are not identified with the works of the Creator's, blessed be his name, in creating and governing the world. It's not the spheroids, right? But rather the spheroids are the thoughts underlining the works. So that's what we've been saying, like this idea that everything that they're basically spheroids is another way of saying 99%, right? And that every single thing that exists in creation that you can see, the bottom line is that it's an emanation of light. He says, whether the spheroids are thoughts, are the thought that underlines the works, while the creation and the ways that they are governed are the works arising out of these thoughts. So what happened first, the chicken or the egg, right? He says, Mashe who pulal be seder. The seder has spheroids, leafy. So he says, which he brings about through the spheroids in accordance with the law he chose for them. When God acts through the spheroids, it is not in accordance with the eccentric omnipresence, whereby he can do everything in one command without the need of separation and differentiate between various stages. When he chose to act through the spheroids, he organized his power in an orderly system such as the base Menachem. Base Menucha. He says this is a 15th century Kabbalist text by Rabbi Abraham Girda. In other words, he chose to act little by little and to think about every individual, not that he himself has any need for this. He chose to act in this way because this is the way in which man can gain a medium, a mediocre, basically an understanding of God. So he says basically all the things that we see God has done and how he took so much detail to every single molecule, right? Like you think about every single molecule is an expression of light. Every single cell is a composite of these molecules. Matter is a form of molecule. All these things are composites of light. And so he's saying Hashem did it this way so we could be able to ponder and understand aspects of him on a small level. He says, he says, barim. He said, the sphere in which we speak are part of the interconnected order in which the Supreme Will organizes his creative activity, similar to in the way in which a person thinks his thoughts little by little and carries them out stage by stage. This being the case, it is possible for us to understand how many powers are involved in each individual act. Which was first, which came afterwards, and which is acted on, and so on. So he's saying the expressions of the spheros are similar to how we develop an understanding of a particular subject, right? We understand stage by stage. So he's saying because each stage has its own evolution process, we don't know how many influences are involved in each stage. He says it would have been completely impossible to talk in such terms in if Insof, blessed be he, had wanted to act in his omnipresence. His acting, little by little, is like a person who knows how to read a complete word all at once, yet chooses to read each letter individually in the way that children do. So he's showing this relationship of the manifestation of the lights of the world and how they evolved one stage after another. And that's why it's impossible for us to know. He brings an analogy of a person who's like teaching a kid how to understand a book, right? He goes stage by stage. He says, nit, he says, nitlim ele ba ele. He says, are independent. He says, thus we speak of lights, we can distinguish which are roots and which are branches. We speak of Ze'er and Pin and Nukba being governed by Ima and Abba, and Ima Amma being crowned or comprised by Mazal, which we are able to speak in terms of because the emanator, blessed be he, chose to order his power in this manner. And he instituted that one power should be dependent on another. And this is similar to a man who is made up of many different powers, all of which he needs and all of which are independent. For example, a man's faculty of speech are dependent upon his ability to think. For one does not think without, I don't know about that, but he says one who does not think does not speak. Yotziim Beisha Beha Shemek Ele Ma'ale. So he says the things emerge as consequences of one another. This refers to the concept of the chain of dependence. He says, mentioned in the Kabbalistic writing, he says, likewise, the various powers of the soul of the individuals are also organized as a system in which one is bound up one to another. Thus, memory is a product of thought, and the ability to recognize, their ability in recognize similarly all of the different powers of the soul are likewise independent. He says, when we come to a detail of how God governs the world with kindness, judgment, and compassion, we will gain a clear understanding of how things are bound together in a developmental chain. An example of this interconnectivity may be found in the various traits of the human psyche, such as mercy, anger, love, hatred, desire, and the likes. Just as all these traits of the psyche are interconnected, emerging from one from another, so to speak, are similar to interconnected between the parsufim. She says, and one thing is concealed within another. This refers to the concept of hashlebeah, discussed in the Kabbalah. This phenomenon is perfectly evident as a manifestation itself in the man's soul. For example, when a father chastises his son, love is the active power, for the father does what he does only because he loves his son. Yet, while the love is an active part of on the hidden plane, our eyes see the father's surface anger and hatred, because he puts out a face of rage. There are many similar examples, but sometimes what we are inside and what appears on the surface are not opposite. Just as that what is hidden may on a deep thought, which the owner does not want to reveal, and accordingly he outwardly acts in a different way. And this is all that is revealed to those who see him. So he's saying this idea of the physical expressions of the light. And it's not versus the internal aspects of the light, but just understanding that they're different, even though they're there. So he's bringing different examples. So he says in the sense that one power may be acting in a hidden manner, while outwardly it appears as if a different power is acting, yet in truth it is manifest power acts only in accordance with the power concealed within it. The meaning of this should be clear in the light of what we have said above. Ulekin near kol mahami hami hadimi got. Sorry about that. Has to throat. So he says the second part. All right. So the first part is this understanding of expressions of light, because he's trying to get us to understand this idea of when a person receives prophetic images, and that's what he's going to go into now. Right? I'm telling you, this so far, this whole sefer is about how to understand prophecy and how, and I don't know. I mean, we're on chapter 10. It's like 100 and something chapters here, right? It's 138. Jeez. All right, brother. All right. Let's keep going. All right, let's go back. So 130 chapters. So right now we're learning about prophecy. Hold on. Okay, so this is the second part. Ube came the nira od kola hademiyot benot. Sorry, I don't know. I can't get this word right. Anyways, hold on. Oh, so it's hademi vonot. All right, right. So it's like, all right, these forms. Okay, so it's like this. So therefore, the throats are seen taking all of these forms in likeness. In other words, the forms and likeness in which the prophet sees his throat, interdependent, clothed one in another, and so on, appears on the spiritual plane in a similar way to the way the way that it is the corresponding phenomena appears on the spiritual and the physical. There is connections. This is because the very phenomena of the upper realms are the root of the corresponding phenomena on the lower realms, and therefore automatically relate to them, and as will be discussed later. So he's basically showing this connection. He's basically showing this. He's basically saying like everything that we see manifest in the physical space is a byproduct in everything is a byproduct of what's happening in the upper worlds, right? A principle we're aware of. He says, appearing in the form of lights and clothed within lights, or as lights emerging from other lights. Here we have mentioned two concepts. I have mentioned above clothing and the developmental chain. The third of interrelationship in which one power depends on another. In the way that Iman Abba are crowned, or the encompassed by Mazal, is more understandable after we grasp the other two. Uvekala besader devariit hanishim. He says all of these forms and likeness are what the soul sees when looking at the spheroids. From seeing them, the soul gains an understanding of these. I guess this is what it means by the heart. We see he gains understanding of these phenomena on a spiritual plane, just as we gain knowledge on a physical plane through the vision of sight, right? So, because the pasuk by the Rambam says that the prophet first sees, and then the image is inscribed on his heart. So I think this is what he's explaining. He says, accordingly, we speak in terms of the soul seeing just as the light the eye sees. The soul and the physical eye each possess their own characteristic, faculty, in a vision. For example, there is a circle in that the physical eye sees, and there is a circle seen, conceived, or understood by the mind. Okay, so we're stopping here. So the thing is like this. The thing is to say that when it comes to the images that a prophet will receive, or as the Ramchal says, a unique neshama can receive, because he separates. He said there's prophets and there's unique neshamas. And so the prophecy that a unique neshama can receive is he's showing us the stages, right? He's showing us how this dynamic of the prophet, goes through stages. And the expression of it, like all physical things, is only a reflection of something spiritual. And so when a person sees this image of prophecy that comes to them, they have to know that their soul is reading it and understanding it at a different level than the eyes. The eyes see it at a certain level of the intellect, and the soul sees it on a much deeper level. It sees it on the levels of the spheros and the meanings of the spheros. And so it seems like now that he's creating that structure, that the challenge is how to bring those two things together, the intellectual mind and the spiritual mind, and how to bring those together to understand these perspectives. Any thoughts, reflections?
Yeah, Yofi. Um, it makes me think about, like we were saying, that Hashem chose to create the world in these stages. Like he chose to go step by step, just like when Hashem created the world, he chose to do it in 7 days. That was a choice, and it makes me think about, like, why do we have eyesight? Why do you have the ability to perceive physically? Maybe it's to show you that you do have the ability to perceive on spiritual level. So the eyesight is like step one in your understanding. Like just how you see this physical thing, you can identify what it is. Spiritually, everything is infused with the essence of Hashem. So it's like the physical ability to see is allowing you to understand what the spiritual ability to see is. Um, and it's like even a few paragraphs back up when we first started to share um, Moshe and Aaron, how Aaron is the spokesman, but Moshe is the essence. He's the one it's like Aaron is shielding, it's the sheath, and Moshe is the sword underneath. You know, he's the covering, he's the mouthpiece, he's hold, but Nizak is the one actually moving. And it kind of goes into like when we're counting the Sifrot, we're working on Midot, after Pesach, and it's like going into Shavuot, all of these, Chesed, Gevurah, Teferet, they're all interconnected. So you can have, Chesed of Gevurah, you can have Teferet of Hold, all they're all interconnected and they're all in stages. So the unfolding of it is something I feel like the Ram Call has given us the ability to understand. So yeah, like I said, it's to me, it is talking about prophecy. That's a high level, and that's probably beyond 99% of us, and I put myself in that 99%, like it's beyond us. But it also seems like the Ram Kaj Cipher is giving us the ability to conceptualize Hashem's essence or his will, I say his essence, on a level that we can kind of grasp, and fundamentally put into your mind the process of creation and this reality. And it's showing the kindness of Hashem, the compassion of Hashem, how he set up this world for us to get closer to him. All of everything in this reality was created specifically for us to be able to grasp Hashem in a sense. Like your ability to see, your ability to hear, your ability to speak. Why do you have those abilities? And I think once if we go into that conversation, you get to the essence of why. You're not here to, you know, use your words to recite a rap song or a country song or whatever. It's you have the power to speak to glorify your creator. And in Hashem's humility, he gives us a lifetime to figure it out. So it's like you gotta choose wisely on why you're here. Like don't get caught up in the matrix of it. All of this is specifically designed. That's what I'm getting from it so far.
Yeah, so we're with you. We're going down that road. Yeah, we're just going down that road. I mean, we're just unfolding it. And I think the bigger idea, or not bigger, I don't never say bigger, but a tangible idea out of this teaching is to kind of just to see everything in that way, to understand that the eye, especially like dating, like for me, it's a very big idea to be able to look past the surface, and to be able to really kind of like connect that, like what type of light does this person is functional, right? And I met this person recently. We went out the other night, and I'm telling you, it was one of the most humbling experiences because the person who I thought this person was and who they gave me a glimpse to, and just over the course of a few hours, it was just let me know like I don't really know anything. I can't see anything. I was completely clear on who this person was and what they're about, and it was like I wouldn't say it's the opposite, but it was much more expansive, and who knows where anything will go. But I'm just saying the point is just saying in general, it's still like the same approach that we're talking about prophecy. This thing matters in life because a lot of the decisions that we make, are based off of the fact that we think we're understanding this prophecy. We're understanding this revelation to us, this light. And it's just important to know that we can't see everything, and that's why there's a knowledge of the heart, because the knowledge of the heart, also allows us to connect to things beyond that. But it has to be heart, not emotion, but heart in terms of depth as it relates to heart as it connects to the intellect, which is part of the wrapping of tefillin. But the point is just saying that it's just important. You know what I mean? It's just important. Anyways, we'll continue tomorrow. What tomorrow's Friday, so I think we should be good for tomorrow. We it's a little bit harder on Friday sometimes because I have to have a big responsibility with setting up everything. You know what I'm saying? Because I had people over. I had like 100 people over last week.
Wow.
Yeah, 100 people, like probably close to 100 people.
Yeah. It's big rockers.
Yeah, exactly. And mostly singles too. So the thing is just saying that, so we'll figure out for tomorrow, but we'll figure out something. But yeah, just we don't just looking past the physical and not trusting the physical alone. The physical is a big part. It's the part that we interact with. But the idea is that not